The phone on my bedside table lit up at 2:15 on a Wednesday morning, and I was already awake before the second buzz. 64 years old, and my body still operates on some internal alarm system left over from 3 decades of family law practice. You spend long enough in courtrooms, long enough sitting across from people whose lives are quietly falling apart, and eventually your nervous system stops believing in uninterrupted sleep. But it wasn't the hour that stopped me cold. It was the name on the screen. Lily. Not my daughter-in-law. Not my son. My granddaughter. 10 years old. Calling me from what I assumed was her bedroom in the house on Fenwick Crescent, Havelock North, a tidy little street in Hawke's Bay where the hedges are always trimmed and the letterboxes all match and everything looks orderly from the outside. Everything always looks orderly from the outside. I answered before my feet touched the floor. Lily, sweetheart, what's wrong? The lead. The sound she made wasn't quite crying. It was something that came after crying, something drier and more exhausted, like a tide that had already gone out twice and had nothing left to pull back. Little shallow breaths. A silence with weight behind it. Grandpa. Just that. My name, or the version of it that mattered most to me. Just that one word. And in it, I heard everything she hadn't yet found the language for. I was already standing, already reaching for my glasses on the nightstand, already doing the calculation without meaning to. Old habit from the courtroom days. Distance from Napier to Havelock North. 40 minutes by car. Time. 2:17 a.m. Reason to go anyway. Absolute. I'm here, I said. I'm right here, love. Tell me what happened. 3 seconds of silence. Then, they left. I asked her to say it again, because I genuinely did not trust what I'd heard. Who left, sweetheart? Dad, and Kira, and Marcus. Marcus, her brother, her biological brother, 12 years old, born to my son Daniel and his wife Kira, who shared their cheekbones and their easy laugh and, as I was about to discover, their holiday plans. They went to Queenstown, she said. Her voice dropped at the end of the sentence, like the destination itself was something to be ashamed of. For Marcus's birthday trip, Dad said I had a school project due Friday and it didn't make sense to take me. But Marcus doesn't have anything due either. I already finished mine. I finished it last week. I didn't speak for a moment. I am a man who has cross-examined witnesses who lied with professional confidence. I once sat in a district court waiting room for 6 hours with a kidney stone because my client had no one else. I have delivered custody rulings to mothers who crumpled like paper. And I did it without letting my voice crack. Because the job required it. Because the moment required it. Because someone had to remain steady when everything else wasn't. I sat on the edge of my bed in Napier at 2:17 inches the morning, and I pressed my thumb and forefinger against the bridge of my nose and breathed. You didn't do anything wrong, I said. You hear me? Not one single thing. Then why didn't they take me too? I don't know yet, love. But I'm going to find out. I didn't know, in that moment, how much weight that sentence would end up carrying. I rang my neighbor, Pat Sorensen, at 2:31 a.m. Pat is 68, retired from the post office, and is the only human being I have ever met who treats a phone call at any hour like a perfectly reasonable social occasion. He picked up on the second ring sounding like he'd been awake for hours, which for all I know he had. Graham, he said. Just my name. Like a greeting and a question at the same time. I need you to look after the cat for a few days. A pause. That granddaughter of yours? I didn't answer. And he didn't need me to. I'll come by for the key in 10 minutes, he said. Go. That's Pat. 23 years of living 2 doors down. And the man has never once pressed me for information I wasn't ready to give. Those are the friendships that hold. I dressed, put the kettle on out of habit, didn't drink the tea, and drove the 40 minutes to Havelock North with the windows down because the cool air helped me think. On the passenger seat, my briefcase, a legal pad, and a small voice recorder I hadn't used in 4 years, taken from the bottom drawer of my desk without fully deciding why. I told myself it was muscle memory. I told myself a lot of things on that drive. The house on Fenwick Crescent was dark except for the kitchen light, which was on in the way a light is on when a child has been too frightened to turn it off. I parked in the street and walked up the path, and before I reached the front steps, the door opened. Lily was in her pajamas, pale yellow ones with little hedgehogs printed on them. Her hair, dark brown, thick, the kind that curls at the ends when it's humid, was tangled from sleep or from lying awake for hours. I couldn't tell which. Her eyes were swollen. She'd been crying long before she called me. She didn't say anything. She just came down the steps and walked straight into me. I caught her and held on. She put both arms around my middle and pressed her face against my jacket and let out this long, slow breath, like something she'd been holding since before she even picked up the phone. I felt the tension go out of her shoulders in stages, like a fist slowly unclenching. "Grandpa's here," I said. "I've got you." We stood there on the front path for a while. The street was completely still. A car alarm chirped once, somewhere in the distance, and then went quiet. A possum shifted in the liquidambar tree across the road. The night in Hawke's Bay in early March is warm and dry, and smells like something flowering that I can never identify, and under any other circumstances it would have been lovely. Eventually I pulled back and looked at her face. "Have you eaten anything tonight?" She shook her head. "Right. Inside." Then, the house told me things before Lily said another word. 30 years of family law teaches you to read a space before you read the people in it. I moved slowly through the hallway, taking it in. The wall beside the staircase was covered in framed photographs. The kind of careful arrangement that announces itself as a happy family. The kind that takes an afternoon to get right. I walked the length of it and counted. Marcus at rugby, mid-sprint, one arm raised. Marcus and Daniel at the top of a ski run somewhere, both grinning, matching beanies. The three of them, Daniel and Kira and Marcus, at what looked like a wedding, all dressed up, laughing at something outside the frame. Marcus's school photo from last year. A photo of Daniel and Kira on what appeared to be a beach in the Coromandel. Just the two of them. The kind of photo couples take when they've left the kids somewhere. I counted 14 photographs on that wall. I took my time. I counted twice. Lily appeared in 3 of them. One was her school photo, smaller than Marcus's, placed at the lower end of the arrangement near the light switch. The kind of position that exists because someone remembered at the last moment. The second was a group photo at a birthday party, someone else's birthday. By the looks of it, a child I didn't recognize in the center of the frame. Lily standing at the back on the left, half obscured by a balloon. The third was a photo of her and me, taken at my house in Napier, at the kitchen table, both of us looking at something she'd made, neither of us aware anyone was watching. That one, at least, was real. I stood in front of that wall for a long time, long enough that Lily came and stood beside me. "I don't really like looking at it," she said, quietly. "Why not?" She thought about it. "I look like someone who came to visit, and then just stayed. 10 years old. 10 years old. And she had already translated what I was only beginning to document into language." I touched the recorder in my jacket pocket. I made her toast with Vegemite, because it was the only thing I could confidently produce in someone else's kitchen at 3 in the morning. And while she ate, I sat across from her and let her talk. Old habit. Don't conduct an interview. Open a window and step back. "When did they tell you?" I asked. "Monday, after dinner." She ate without looking up. Dad said it was a last-minute thing for Marcus's birthday week. He said I had school. Marcus's birthday is in April, isn't it? I knew it was. Daniel had rung me about it 3 weeks ago. Yeah. She said it like it was a fact she'd been carrying around by herself. I know. I didn't say anything, though. Why not? She put down her toast. Because last time I said something about being left out, Kira got upset and said I was making everything about me. And then Dad didn't talk to me properly for almost a week. She picked the toast back up. So, I just don't say things anymore. There it was. I kept my face calm. Lawyer's face. The one I spent years calibrating so juries couldn't read me. What happened last time, Lily? What were you left out of? She looked at me for a long moment, weighing something. I recognized the look. I'd seen it in interview rooms, in mediation sessions, in the faces of children asked to describe things they'd been quietly carrying for longer than anyone realized. She was deciding how much to trust me with. Last year in October, she said carefully, Dad and Kira took Marcus to the South Island. They said it was a school trip for him, a reward for his grades. But Marcus told me later it wasn't a school trip. It was just a trip. She paused. I stayed here with a babysitter. She was a uni student who didn't really talk to me. She just watched her laptop all weekend. I wrote nothing down. I didn't need to. And August, she said. We were supposed to go to Rotorua as a family. That's what Dad said. And then the week before. Kira said the thermal pools weren't good for my skin because I'd had eczema in winter. But Marcus went. And his skin is fine. She looked at me steadily. My eczema was gone by July, filed away. I reached for the recorder. Lily. I set down my pen. I need to ask you something important. And I need you to tell me the truth, even if you think the answer might upset someone. She nodded. In this house, do you feel like you and Marcus are treated the same way? The pause was long enough that I heard the refrigerator hum and the tick of a clock somewhere down the hall. Sometimes, she said. Then, more quietly, more honestly. Not really. No. Can you tell me one more thing? Something different from what you've already told me? She looked at the ceiling. That old soul look, the one children get when the world has asked too much of them too early, weighing which truth to offer. My birthday, she said finally. I turned 10 in June. We had a cake at home. Just us. Dad got me a craft set. She wasn't complaining. She was just reporting. Marcus turned 12 in April, and they hired out the function room at the sports club. There was a DJ. About 30 kids came. They had a photo booth. 2 months apart. 2 years in the same family. 2 completely different definitions of worth. I didn't say anything for a moment. Some information doesn't need a response. It just needs to be witnessed. Lily, look at me. She did. You are not too much. You are not a problem to manage. And calling someone who loves you when you're scared and alone in the middle of the night is not being difficult. That is the whole point of having a grandpa. She almost smiled. Then, did you really drive all the way here? At 2 in the morning? 42 minutes. Door to door. That's kind of far. Not really. She went back to her toast. I went back to my legal pad, and I began writing down dates. Daniel rang at 9:10 the next morning. I let it go to voicemail. Kira tried at 11:15. Daniel rang again at noon and left a message I would eventually play in a different context entirely. I listened to all 3 while Lily was in the shower. The first message. Dad? Hi. Yeah, look. I figured Lily might have called you. I thought she might. It's not. It's more involved than it probably sounds. Ring me back when you get a chance. More involved. Right. As though leaving a 10-year-old girl alone overnight while you took her brother to Queenstown was a situation requiring additional context to understand. The second. Kira. Graham. I just want you to know that Lily was perfectly safe. Our neighbor Sandra has a key, and she checked in on her. And Lily had food in the fridge and her iPad. We would never have gone if we thought she was in any danger. She would never have gone. She left a child home alone with a neighbor as a backup plan. The way you leave a casserole dish in the oven on low. I wrote, no designated guardian. Child left without legal caretaker present overnight. The third, Daniel again, mid-afternoon. I could hear the sound of a gondola or a shuttle behind him, some mechanical tourist noise, somewhere scenic. Dad, I really need you to not make this into a big thing. Lily's fine. You being there is actually great. She loves you. We'll be back Sunday. We can sort it all out then. She tends to dramatize things. You know how she is. I set the phone face down on the kitchen table. She tends to dramatize things. A 10-year-old girl rang her grandfather at 2:15 the morning because the people responsible for her flew 400 kilometers away and left her with a spare key and an iPad. And the word my son reached for was dramatize. I picked up my legal pad and wrote 3 words, underlined twice. Pattern. Documentation. Court. Lily came downstairs in jeans and a yellow hoodie, damp hair combed back, looking approximately 8 years old and also somehow somewhere in her 30s. Kids who've absorbed too much of the adult world too early get that particular look. I'd seen it more times than I could count, and it never stopped meaning something. Did Dad call? She asked. He did. Is he angry? The absolute nerve of that question, directed at me. When the answer to who should be angry in this situation was not difficult to identify. No, I said. He's not angry. How are you feeling? She considered it. Okay. A bit embarrassed. About what? About calling you in the middle of the night. And crying. She looked at the table. Kira says, I cry too easily. I closed my legal pad. Lily. Crying when you're frightened and alone and the people who were supposed to be there for you aren't, that is not too easily. That is a completely normal human response to an abnormal situation. I paused. I cried in a district court once. Full tears. Judge and everything. Her eyes went wide. You didn't. The judge was not impressed. The other party's solicitor was very pleased about it. But I won the case. So, she laughed. A small, surprised, real laugh. The kind children produce when they've been braced for disappointment for so long that something genuinely funny catches them off guard. I hadn't heard it before. It occurred to me, with a particular sadness, that I didn't know what Lily's laugh sounded like. Come on, I said. We're not spending the whole day in this house. Where are we going? Somewhere that isn't here. We drove into Havelock North Village and had lunch at a cafe on Taymata Road that I'd passed 100 times and never gone into the kind of place with a blackboard menu and mismatched chairs and a cabinet full of cabinet puddings that a person of my age and situation has absolutely no business ordering. Lily had a toasted sandwich and a raspberry lemonade. I had a bowl of pumpkin soup and made my peace with it. The woman who took our order had a kind face and gave Lily the small smile that adults give children when they can tell things have been hard recently, without quite knowing how. Good to have your granddad visiting, she said. Lily looked at me sideways. He's all right, she said, with the careful understatement of someone trying not to seem too pleased. High praise, I said. The woman smiled and left us alone. Over lunch, I did what I'd been quietly doing since I sat down at that kitchen table at 3 a.m. Not an interrogation, just a conversation with a very specific shape. Tell me about the school play, I said. November last year. Your teacher sent me the program. You had a speaking part. Her face did something complicated and bright at the same time. You knew about that? Mrs. Tuhu emailed me a copy. Said, you were the best thing in it. I had 9 lines, she said. The number came quickly, automatically, like she'd counted them more than once. I played the lighthouse keeper. It was the second biggest part. Were your dad and Kira there? The complicated things settled back over her face. Dad came for the first half, she said carefully. He had to leave at interval because Marcus had football training that ran over. And Kira stayed with Marcus. She does the driving for his team on Thursdays. I nodded, kept my voice at the same level it had been when we were discussing the soup. Did anyone tell you they saw it? That you were good? Mrs. Tuho told me. And my friend Ava's mum. She recorded it on her phone and sent me the video. She looked at her lemonade. I watched it a few times. I thought about a 10-year-old girl watching a video of herself on a phone, alone in her room, because there was no one else who'd thought to record it. I thought about that for longer than was comfortable. And the Wellington trip, I said. February. Year 5 camp. Did Daniel and Kira come to the send-off? Kira did, she said. Then, quickly, in a tone that had learned not to expect, she was actually there for that one. She took a photo of me with my bag. A beat. She didn't print it, though. It's just on her phone. I looked at the photo wall in my mind. 14 photographs. 3 with Lily. One of them taken by me. In my kitchen. Not even in their house. Not even something they'd thought to put up, something they'd found somewhere and put up to look like they'd thought to put it up. Exhibit B. Exhibit C was the Christmas photo, which I didn't know about yet. Lily told me about it on the drive home, unprompted, while she was looking out the window. Last Christmas, she said, we went to a studio in Napier for a family photo, the matching outfits kind. Kira got navy blue for her, and Dad and Marcus. A pause. She forgot to get one for me. She said she'd ordered one, but it was the wrong size. So I wore my school PE shirt. It's dark blue, so it sort of matched. She said it the way she said a lot of things carefully, the sharp edges sanded smooth from being turned over too many times. It looks okay in the photos. If you don't look closely, are those photos displayed in the house? One's on the mantelpiece in the lounge, she said. In a frame and everything. That evening, while Lily sat at the kitchen table doing a jigsaw puzzle she'd found in the hall cupboard, I stood in the lounge doorway and looked at the mantelpiece. The Christmas photo was in a silver frame. Daniel, Kira, Marcus, navy blue. Lily, dark blue school PE shirt, standing slightly apart, one shoulder angled inward, as though she'd been practicing for years how to take up less space in a frame. I took out my phone and photographed it. Then I went back through the hall and photographed the wall again, every single frame, every face, every careful arrangement. Then I took out my recorder and spoke quietly into it. Friday, approximately 7 p.m. Fenwick Crescent, Havelock North. Family photographs. Hallway and lounge. 14 photographs in main hallway. Subject Lily appears in 3. In 2 of the 3, she is visually separated from the family unit or partially obscured. In 1, she is wearing clothing inconsistent with the rest of the family, suggesting she was not included in the original planning of the event. The 3rd photograph was taken at an external location and features only Lily and the paternal grandfather. No photographs in hallway depict Lily as a central or featured subject. Christmas portrait on lounge mantelpiece. Subject Lily in mismatched clothing, positioned at the edge of the frame, one shoulder turned inward. I clicked it off. Lily called from the kitchen. Grandpa, do you know what a 7-letter word for perseverance is? Stamina, I said. A pause. That's only 7. If you count the A at the end, then that's your answer. Oh. Yeah, that fits. The sound of a puzzle piece clicking into place. I went and sat across from her and opened my laptop. Daniel called at 8:30 that evening. I answered. Dad, The relief came through immediately. Then the careful calibration of someone who knows they're in trouble and is deciding how much to acknowledge. How is she? She's fine. She's here. She's safe. A beat. Look, I know how this looks. Daniel. I said his name, the way I used to say a witness's name. When I needed them to understand, we'd moved into different territory. I want to ask you something, and I need you to answer me honestly. Okay, when is the last time Lily was the centerpiece of something your family did? Not included? Not brought along the actual point of it? Silence. He stopped. Last year, we did another stop. She came to Christmas at Mum's, Christmas at my ex-wife's house, where she sat at the end of the table in a school PE shirt because no one ordered her a matching outfit in time. Silence. Her birthday was a cake at home, I said. Marcus's was a DJ, and 30 kids at a function room. The South Island trip was for Marcus. Rotorua was canceled for Lily specifically. The school play, at interval. You left at interval. Complete silence. The kind that has density to it. Daniel. I'm not telling you that you're a bad person. I'm asking you to look at what I've just listed and tell me honestly what you see. He was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, lower, stripped of the practiced reasonableness he'd been using since the first call. I don't know how it got to this, he said. Not a defense, not a justification. Just a man who'd looked up and suddenly couldn't recognize the distance he'd traveled. We'll talk on Sunday, I said. In person. All of us. Yeah. Okay. Dad. I hung up. I sat at their kitchen table, drinking their tea, listening to Lily fit puzzle pieces together in a warm pool of lamplight, and I opened my laptop and began drafting the application. The legal framework in New Zealand for a grandparent seeking a parenting order is established under the Care of Children Act, 2004. I know this the way I know my own phone number. I hadn't practiced in 4 years. But some things don't leave you. They just wait in a drawer like a good pen. I also knew that what Lily had described to me a consistent, documented pattern of exclusion, a child left overnight without proper guardianship, the systematic erosion of a child's sense of belonging and worth within her own household, was not merely a family disagreement. It was a welfare concern, and welfare concerns, when properly documented, have a way of clarifying things in a courtroom quite efficiently. I worked until midnight, then went to check on Lily, who was asleep on the couch under a blanket she'd pulled from somewhere, her jigsaw only half finished, the puzzle box tilted against the cushions like a small monument to perseverance. I turned off the lamp, went to the spare room, and slept the sleep of a man who knows what he's going to do in the morning. I spent Saturday making sure Lily ate real food, saw some sunlight, and felt like a person who was allowed to take up space. We walked the trails on Te Mata Peak, which I had not done in 15 years and my knees informed me of at length. We stopped at the lookout at the top, where the Hawke's Bay Plains spread out below like a painting, and Lily stood at the railing with her hair blowing sideways and said, quietly and to no one in particular, I forgot it looked like this. I stood beside her and didn't say anything, because sometimes the correct thing to say is nothing. On the walk down, she asked me about my work, the old work, what it was like to be a family lawyer. I told her some stories, the ones appropriate for a 10-year-old, which was maybe 40% of them. I told her about a case where I'd helped a grandmother get visitation rights to see her grandchildren after a divorce, and how the grandmother had cried so much in the waiting room afterward that she'd soaked through 3 of my handkerchiefs. Did you cry too? Lily asked. Only a little, in the car afterwards, where no one could see. That's still crying, she said. That's still crying, I agreed. She thought about this for a while. Then, do you think it matters? That she got to see them? I think it mattered enormously, I said. I think the children remembered that someone chose to fight for them. I think they carried that. Children always carry that. Lily didn't respond, but I noticed she took my hand on the last section of the path, the steep part, the part where you have to watch where you put your feet. She kept hold of it until we reached the car park. Daniel and Kira arrived home on Sunday afternoon. I heard the car in the driveway from the kitchen, where I was making tea because it is what I do in situations requiring composure. Lily was upstairs. She didn't come down. I went to the hallway and waited. Daniel came through the door first. He looked tired in the particular way that has nothing to do with not sleeping, the kind of tired that comes from knowing you've been caught and spending several days in a scenic location trying to pretend otherwise. Kira was behind him, sunglasses pushed up on her head, a gift bag in one hand. Something from Queenstown, I assumed. Something for Lily, purchased somewhere between the gondola and the realization that this had gone very badly. "Dad," Daniel said. "Check your letterbox," I said. He looked at me for a moment, then went back to the front door, came back holding a manila envelope with the kind of metal clasp that means someone took this to an office and made it official. He turned it over in his hands. "What is this?" "That is an application to the family court for a parenting order granting day-to-day care of Lily Tran to me, her paternal grandfather, filed Friday morning with the Napier Family Court Registry." Kira's face went the color of the wall behind her. "You can't just," she started. "I've already done it," I said. Not unkindly. 30 years of family law. The paperwork comes back. Daniel opened the envelope slowly. He read the first page, and then he sat down on the bottom step of his own staircase, the way people sit when the floor has stopped feeling reliable. Kira stood very still. "I have recordings," I said, keeping my voice level. "I have photographs with timestamps. I have a documented list of every event, every trip, every birthday, every school performance, where the seats that should have had parents in them were empty. I have Lily's own account, recorded with her knowledge, of being told she cries too easily, that she dramatizes things, that she makes everything about herself when she raises the fact that she is being excluded." I paused. "I have a photograph of a Christmas portrait, where the family wore matching outfits, and your daughter wore her school PE shirt because no one thought to order her size." Daniel's head was down. His shoulders had the look of something that had been holding up a weight for a long time and had finally, quietly, set it down. "I'm not here to destroy anything," I said. "I'm here because that girl rang me at 2 a.m. and asked me why, and no one in this house had an answer." Kira started to cry. I handed her a tissue, because whatever else was happening here, I am not the kind of man who watches someone cry and does nothing. "Are you going to contest it?" I asked Daniel. He looked up. His eyes were red. He shook his head once, slowly, the way people move when they've run out of arguments against themselves. "I know," he said, very quietly. "I know, Dad." The hearing was 3 weeks later at the Napier Family Court, Judge Aroha Williams presiding. A woman with 3 decades on the bench and the particular quality of attention that makes everyone in a courtroom feel simultaneously seen and accountable. Daniel came with no lawyer. He testified for 14 minutes. He said, without embellishment or excuse, that he loved his daughter and that he had failed her in ways that would take him a long time to understand, and that his father was able to give her something he had demonstrably not been giving her. Priority, consistency, the experience of being the point rather than the afterthought. Judge Williams granted the parenting order to me, Graham Tran, her paternal grandfather, effective immediately, with provision for regular contact with Daniel pending review in 6 months. I looked over at Lily, sitting beside my solicitor, Bev Harrington. In a navy dress she'd chosen herself from the bag she'd packed at my suggestion on Saturday evening. She was already looking at me. She didn't cry, She gave me a small, serious nod, the kind that means I understood what we were doing, and now I see that it worked, and I am confirming this with you. She held it together all the way through the building and into the car park. Then, when we were in the car and the doors were closed and the court building was behind us, she put her face in her hands and cried, not the exhausted, dried-out crying from the night she rang me, but the other kind. The kind that means relief, the kind that comes after. I didn't say anything. I handed her the travel tissues from the glove box and let her take the time she needed. After a while, she looked up. "Grandpa," she said, "are you going to be okay? With me there all the time. I know your house is small." I started the car. Outside, the Napier waterfront was going about its Sunday in the particular golden afternoon light that Hawke's Bay does better than anywhere else I've ever lived. "Lily," I said, "I have been rattling around in that house by myself for 4 years. You are not a disruption. You are the reason that house exists." She looked out the window for a moment. Then, "Am I your favorite?" I pulled out of the car park and onto Marine Parade. "You're my only," I said. "That's not the same thing as favorite. That's better." She was quiet for a few seconds. Then she reached over and put her hand on my arm, the way she'd taken my hand on the path down from Tamata Peak, the way you hold on to someone when you need to know they're real and they're staying. "Okay," she said. "Okay." We drove home. Here is what I want to leave you with. If you've stayed this far, children who are adopted into families are not provisional. They are not a trial run, not a footnote, not the child you make room for after the real planning is done. When you choose to bring a child into your family, whether you carried them or traveled to the other side of the world for them, or signed your name on a legal document to make it official, you are making a promise that has no asterisks. There is no clause that says, except when it's inconvenient. No fine print that reads, unless the biological ones take precedence. Exclusion doesn't have to be dramatic to be damaging. It doesn't have to be loud. It lives in the small arithmetic of who gets the matching outfit and who wears the PE shirt, who gets the function room and who gets the cake at home, who's in 14 photos on the wall and who's in 3. Children are extraordinarily good at doing that arithmetic. They do it quietly, in their rooms, and they come to conclusions about themselves that take years to unlearn. If you are raising children who did not come to you biologically, ask yourself honestly whether both children would describe their experience of your family the same way. Ask yourself who gets the front row. Ask yourself whether you have ever reached for the word dramatic when what you meant was inconvenient. And if you are a grandparent, if you are 64 and think your useful years are mostly behind you, understand this. Sometimes the most important thing you will ever do happens at 2 a.m, when your phone lights up and a small voice says your name like it's the only word left. You pick up, you go. That's the whole of it.